UK has become one of the world's most nature-depleted countries, with around 1 in 6 species here facing the threat of extinction. And with thousands of years of human activity leading to the loss of large areas of valuable and globally rare habitats, it paints a gloomy picture for the future of our wildlife. However, amongst all of this destruction, many species far from their original homes are managing to thrive here in our forests, our urban areas, and even some of our most extreme habitats. But the one thing that all of these species have in common is that they're all just trying to survive. London, an endless sea of noise and commotion, and probably the last place you'd think to look for wildlife. However, amongst all of the chaos of these bustling streets, many amazing species are finding ways to live alongside us. And they're able to do so by using the many parks of the city as safe refuges away from the busy streets. But these green spaces don't only provide refuges for our own native species. Because here, tucked away on the banks of the Regent's Canal and hiding in its overgrown verges, lives a very secretive animal. Although native to mainland Europe, nobody knows how they got here. But these Aesculapian snakes have been living along the canal for nearly 40 years. And with the local rats making up the majority of their diets, they've had no reason to venture far from their overgrown paradise. And while hardly anybody notices that these snakes live here, and their existence remains extremely secretive, these exotic reptiles aren't the only animal which has come to call the city their home, seeing as there is another, much noisier species which can be found here.
I'm Nick Hunt. I'm a writer, writes about walking and nature, and I've written a book about the parakeets. In the UK, we've got ringneck parakeets. They're the most common ones that you see. And they're green. That's the first thing people will tell you about them. The parakeets that we've got here are native to South Asia. People assume that they're tropical birds, like parrots, but their range extends right up into the foothills of the Himalayas, so they are used to cold weather. So the story of how they ended up here, they were popular pets, and they are very adaptable, they're very clever, and so I don't think it would take much for a parakeet to escape, and the rest is history. They took over from there. The question of whether they are doing damage, ecologists that I've spoken to generally seem fairly relaxed about their impact on native British wildlife as a whole. They do outcompete owls and birds that use hollows of trees for nesting. But generally the experts seem to be saying that there's currently more than enough habitat and more than enough food to go around. Parakeets are very generalist in their diet, so nuts, seeds, flowers. They are not particularly picky from what I know. They are partly thriving in cities in the UK, especially London, because people love feeding birds. I love them. I'm not an ecologist, I'm not a scientist. Just to see something not only surviving, but apparently thriving, I can't help that making me happy on some deep level.
Moving up north from our capital city, we hit the Scottish Highlands, where, hidden on an island in the middle of Loch Lomond, there are some marsupials that are very far from home. Native to Australia, these redneck wallabies have been thriving here on Inchconnecan for almost 100 years. And over the generations since these first wallabies arrived, they've adapted perfectly to Scotland's climate. Growing thicker fur to survive the winter and shifting their diets towards the hardy ferns of the island, these resourceful and resilient marsupials have turned a wild and rugged Scottish island into their own unlikely sanctuary. Leaving the wallabies to enjoy their lives on this remote island home of theirs, we head back down south again until we reach the rugged southwestern coast of the UK, where the charming coastal town of Falmouth can be found. And it's here that a small and silent drama is unfolding. And blending in seamlessly with their surroundings lives a creature so elusive that they might go unnoticed entirely.
Hi, I'm Malcolm Lee. For the last 30 years I've been recording records of stick insects to produce distribution maps of where they are in the country. We don't have any stick insects native to the UK, but there are 3 long-established species of stick insect that have come in from New Zealand. The first one that come here turned up in Truro about 100 years ago is called the unarmed stick insect, and that is now the most widespread of all of the stick insects we have here. All species of stick insect virtually have almost no ability to distribute themselves, so they all arrived here on plant material. One in Paynton, a chap was coming back from New Zealand and he bought a whole load of New Zealand plants for his garden and he planted them there. These stick insects, when they lay eggs, they just drop on the plant, drop on the floor below the plant. When their young hatch out the following spring, they climb up the first thing they will come to. So you will find that you're going to be climbing up the same plant. And what you can find is that over 10 years, they're still only on that one plant. However, we're a nation of gardeners, and one of the things that we're very good at is swapping plants with friends. And that is one of the prime ways that these stick insects get moved from one location to another. Almost all the records I get are from private gardens, or perhaps land just adjacent to private gardens. Because human help is the main way these things are being transferred from one place to another, almost certainly that is their prime habitat here, which is an artificial habitat, it's not a natural habitat, but they seem to be surviving quite happily. These stick insects feed on plant material. These ones here are feeding on bramble, which is the most common plant that we find them on. But they'll eat just about anything. Generally speaking, if you ever find one, if you put it on bramble, it will be quite happy. There's no evidence at all that these are causing any issues with native species. The rare insects that are of concern to us are not going to be found in a private, or rarely found in a private garden. It might take a leaf that perhaps a caterpillar would have had, but there's plenty more leaves. You've got to bear in mind, there's always new leaves coming up. And one of the things that's always pleased me over the years is how delighted everybody is to realise they've got these lovely rare things in there. And most people think a few nibbled leaves on their prized begonias is quite a reasonable price to pay to have such a delightful thing that they might occasionally come across.
While these species aren't supposed to be here in the UK, they were brought here against their wills and are just simply trying to survive in an alien world, one that they never evolved to live in. And while some may be harmful for our native species, many of these newcomers are managing to hide away and live in harmony with our wildlife here in the UK. And with so many of our species being threatened, some of these newcomers might just be the key to helping fill roles in the ecosystems to species which have already been lost. And so, as long as their populations don't grow rapidly out of control, most of these species can continue to thrive alongside our own native species here in the UK.
Tropical beats, ring-necked parakeets scream and fly like a fruit stand exploded up in the sky. Aliens in the garden, strangers on the street, out of place but finding their beat. Not from here but they call it home, in the hedges, in the trees where the wild